I am a competitive person. I am an alpha male. Ever since I was a little guy, I was always taught never quit, never give up, never lose. Anybody ever ran track? I remember when I was little, just in the neighborhood, you know, we were so competitive when it came to, especially when we used to get the chance to race the white guys. You know what I'm saying? It was like a rule. You better not lose against a white guy. As if all white people are slow, but, you know, it was one of the things like, man, you can't lose. You know, go out there and get your best. And if you lost or quit, it was a sign of weakness, of submission, of being broken, of not competing to the highest level you can possibly compete to. And even to this day, in most of my life, areas of my life, I have a difficult time surrendering. I have a difficult time quitting anything. I'm still grieving over the fact that I quit basketball in the 3rd grade. I mean, I can't let that go. I'm like, why did I quit? Because I was in the, I'm going to tell you why I quit. One, I stunk. But 2, I got the ball, got in for the first time. Got the ball, they passed it to me, I turned, right in the wrong hoop. Everybody laughed at me, and it was a wrap after that. I was like, okay, I'll never visit this sport again. That was in 3rd grade. And sometimes I go back and I say, man, I can't believe I quit. I threw the towel. Then it came to baseball. First day of baseball, this guy's just smacking balls into the outfield, had me chasing balls all over the place. I said, man, this is for the birds. I'm out. Still think about that. So there are things in your life when you look back and you say, I quit. It might bother you. Same thing with our military. America prides itself on never quitting, never surrendering, never giving up, and so on and so forth. I like that attitude in almost everything about life except for the Lord. That is when it is okay to surrender. And tonight we're going to be talking about surrender. And the title of the Bible study is Surrender and You Shall Live. Now, that seems like an oxymoron. Okay, however, if you look at the art of war down throughout the years, at least America, most of the time, has had mercy on people they've defeated. Once they were beaten, they throw down their guns because there's a strange reality that hits you when you understand it's a wrap. We're about to lose this thing and it ain't worth dying for. And so many times our enemies will throw their weapons down and come out with their hands up to let everybody know, I surrender. Wave the white flag and you ask for mercy. You realize that you have been defeated. So, the same thing when it comes to the Lord. Example, the enemy finally surrendered after 3 days of fighting. So now we see then whenever you are contending, most of the time you do your best as long as you can or desire. But there comes a point where you say enough is enough and I have to give it over to whoever I'm battling with. Same thing when it comes to the Lord. I'm not talking about 3 days. I'm talking about 3 years. It could be 3 decades. And when we're talking about surrendering to the Lord, it's not just surrendering your life over to Him to be saved. But after you get saved, there's some stuff that we want to hold on to that we also must learn to surrender. Now that is a very difficult thing to do because you say, well, I got saved, I'm good to go. But what happens when you're living saved and you realize you're stashing stuff? You realize that you got some stuff in your piggy bank you don't want to get up off of, in your little chest. How about this one? You realize you got stuff planted in the back of your mind that you refuse to release or surrender. Or you got something deep within your heart that you're saying, I refuse to surrender this over to the Lord. And the Lord is not the type of opponent that you can win the battle. So now you're going to have to surrender. And that is the reason why I said in every aspect of my life, I think I can win. When it comes to the Lord, you're fighting a useless battle. Your arms are not long enough to box with Jesus. Simple as that. The Apostle Paul had to learn that on the road to Damascus. When he was blinded, knocked off his horse, and a voice spoke to him saying, Saul, Saul, why dost thou persecutest me? And he said, Lord, Lord, who art thou? And he said, I am Jesus, whom thou persecuted. It is hard for you to kick against the pricks. Meaning this, you will never win when it comes down to fighting against the Lord. It will be as if you are doing nothing but kicking a brick wall until you break your toes. And then you say, let me heal it, and go back to kicking it, and you break the other toes. And so you can't win the battle when it comes to the Lord. So now, we're down to surrendering. It says to the world, the ideal of surrendering is weak. But when one has God as an enemy, you can only have one choice: surrender and live, or fight and die. Now, I love the movie 300. One of my favorite. This is Sparta. And I love that action. And I said to myself, if I ever had to go to war, I would go to war and go down fighting. I'd rather just go down as a hero versus live as a coward. That is my natural model. That is my natural tendency and temperament, to go ahead and say, let's go to war. And if I lose, everybody will say that I lost giving it all. Anybody see the fight over last weekend with, what's that kid? Pacquiao and Sugar Shane. Sugar Shane embarrassed every black man in our nation by running around the ring while Pacquiao was trying to fight him. And his motive was he didn't want to get knocked out, because he has this record of never being knocked down or knocked out, brother. And he wanted to defend that, but he knew he was fighting an opponent that had potential to beat him. Instead of going out there and giving it his all and leaving it in the ring, he decided to run. And to me, that is a coward's way out. It is surrendering. Now he takes his record. He'll go down in history. His last fight, he was booking around the ring. And so that's never, in the eyes of man, a good thing. We look at that as the commentators was letting him have it. This is a disgrace. We paid our money to see this. And absolutely, he ran around. And so in my eyes, when I saw that, I said, that's horrible. I'd get knocked out before I go ahead and run around the ring. You know, I at least wake up like, did I win? No, kid, you've been knocked out for 3 hours. But at least I know I left it all in the ring. So surrendering in the eyes of man is not comfortable. Nobody wants to give it up. I'm a teacher. Well, I'm not a teacher anymore, but I still work with students. And you should see how the students fight to get their will across. One little girl, I got a call over the little microphone we have, and they said, Mr. Ellerbe, would you come up here to room 4 something? I said, sure. Came up there, and I'm thinking it's a big problem. It's a 3rd grade little girl sitting at her desk with her head down and refuses to leave the room. And the person who's responsible for discipline calls me to go get a 3rd grader out the room. So I go in there, and she's down, got the head down, tight arms. I go over to her, and I lean down there, and she had a pencil in her hand. And I was concerned about that pencil, because if she was crazy in the range, she might have hit me with the flip, you know. So the first thing I did is went to grab that pencil. And do you know, she was not trying to let go of that pencil. I'm sitting like, let it go. But she wouldn't let it go. And so I finally had to just snatch it out of her hand and whisper something in her ear that made her get up immediately. And I don't know why nobody else thought of this. But I leaned down and said, you got 3 seconds to get up or I'm calling your mom. 1, she got straight up. Walked straight out the room. I was like, okay, you get the point. Mom, come up there and break it down. But everybody has a button to be pushed that will make them say, enough, no mas, I'm done. And so the same thing comes to human beings. We are in control of our lives, at least we think, up until we meet God. Once we meet the Lord, now he has to say, what buttons do I need to push to get you to surrender? To get you to let go of anything that is standing between you and I? What do I have to do to make you tap out? To make you say, enough is enough. I'm ready to give it up. And so this is what we come to on tonight's Bible study. All right? I said, here's the choice when it comes to God. Surrender and live, or fight and die. So, going to the scriptures. Understand this, that every human being prior to meeting the Lord has an enemy. Enmity is called. A feeling or condition of hostility, hatred, ill will, and animosity. So now you see enmity is hostility. It is, you have an adversary. You have a problem. I see this all the time in the school. People with problems with each other. You can tell the energy in the atmosphere, the way they look at each other, their body language, the way they flex their muscles. All of these things show I am hostile and I have a problem with you. Well, man's nature is contrary to God's nature. So when you meet the Lord and he lays upon you all his guidelines and requirements and all of these things, the first reaction of man is to go, I'm hostile against that because it cramps my style. It doesn't line up according to what I desire, what makes me feel good. And then when you do finally break and give it over to the Lord and get saved, you sometimes realize even after that, I still have stuff that bumps heads with God. And now God has to say, okay, me and you have a problem. Anytime a person sins, it is enmity against God. It is hostility. It is an aggressive act. And now you put yourself as an adversary when it comes to you and the Lord. So now you have to say, I got two choices. Either I can continue to hold on to what I want and continue to hold on to my will and fight against God, or I can break down and surrender whatever I'm holding on to the Lord. So let's read a couple of scriptures to set the context. Romans 8:7, it says, because the carnal mind is enmity against God, for it is not subject to the law of God, neither indeed can be. So now God himself says, anytime a mind frame embraces sin, embraces worldliness, that is an enemy to God. God is looking at that as an aggressive act against him. Now, why is that? People normally don't set out to hurt God. Even the atheist has a hard time just cursing at God. You know, I dare God to do all of that stuff. Most people respect the ideal of God. So they won't just deliberately say, I'm a heathen, I'm a sinner, I'm proud of it, I don't care what God has to. Most people don't do that. What they do, though, is they just say, I'm going to do what I want to do, and hopefully God doesn't curse me, cut me down, have something to say about it. I wish God can just kind of stay out of it. I wish God didn't have anything to do with it. This is just my personal thing that I'm doing. And they say, it ain't nothing to do with God. I ain't trying to hurt him. I just got some stuff I need to do. Well, the problem with that is when God has spoken and said, this is what I desire you to do, but you choose to do something else, it is equivalent to a young child of yours looking you in the eye after you've laid down the rules and said, don't go out the door. And they know the rules. And they say, and you go, where you going? And you go, don't you go out that door, and they keep walking. If you go out that door, I'm like, ooh, boy, you better not open that. And they open it and go straight out. Now, immediately, even though the child might say, it's not personal, Mom. I just wanted to go and play kickball. I just wanted to go outside and play in the grass. It is still upsetting to you because you're like, you openly defied what I had to say. You openly defied what I told you was right. And now, that is aggressive towards me. It's passive aggressive. It's not the kid looking at you and saying, what you going to do about it? But indirectly, you're saying, what you going to do about it? You know, and so now God looks at that as an aggressive act towards him. He's like, I have a problem with that. Now, you can choose to say, I'm going to continue doing my will, or you can stop and say, Lord, not my will, but thy will be done. That's tough. I know it sounds easy because if you think about the whole ideal of the Bible, it's simple. Love God and don't sin. You can go ahead and say, let's go to heaven on that. However, if you really break it down, that's not an easy thing to do because then you start looking at the categories of sin. And some of those categories go right down your alley. See, the stuff we don't like, we'll rebuke that in a minute. I come against that spirit of lust and nothing. But certain stuff, say you got an alcohol problem. All of a sudden you like, I rebuke it? Like a question. I rebuke it? Yeah. So the point that I'm trying to make is some stuff is more appealing to us. And so if we look at the big picture and say, well, just don't sin. Yeah, try that for a while and see what happens. You know, by the grace of God, we can pull it off. But at some point, you're going to find something in you bumps heads with God. Now, all of a sudden, you have a choice. Do I surrender this over to God or do I hang on to it? And so now we see the carnal mind is enmity against God. For it is not subject to the law of God, neither indeed can be. James 4:4. Look what God calls this. He says, ye adulterers and adulteresses, know ye not that the friendship of the world is enmity with God? Whosoever therefore will be a friend of the world is an enemy of God. Now many people are out doing whatever they're doing tonight. Many people have come to the Bible study for years or a couple times and just went off and decided I'm done with it. I'm going to go out and I'd rather kick it and not have my conscience messed over by the word of God. I'm going to go out and I'm just going to do whatever I want because I'm enjoying myself. When a person chooses to become a friend of the world, you indirectly choose to become an enemy of God. Now, that's tricky. But if you think of it in a practical context, if you are on God's side and then you decide to go, oh, think about your neighborhood. Or in high school, that's big right there. You beefing with some guy or some girl. Your boy or your girl hanging with you, but the next day they posted at the locker with your enemy. Slapping hands, my man, what's up, man? You going, whoa, you just crossed the line. You're supposed to be loyal to me. And now that you bonded with that person, I'm suspect with you, man. I got a problem with that. And so the same thing with the Lord. When a person say, I'm going to go out and I'm going to bond to the world, what's happening is indirectly, God is looking and said, oh, you're going to befriend my direct enemy. and now I have a problem with you. But look what it calls it. It says adulterers and adulteresses. Why? Because God is married to the saints. When you give your life to Jesus, you become married to him. And when you go out and you flirt and kick it and hook up with the world, what you're doing is committing adultery to God. He is your husband. And so what happens is, he's saying, yo, I caught you cheating on me with the world. Now, God is not going to, you can get away with it in the natural. No, you may never get caught. I don't know. But with God, he sees you when you're sneaking out the window. He sees you. He sees you when you're texting. He sees you when you're sliding into the party, or you go to creep over somebody's room at night. When you do whatever. When you drop that cuss word, or when you throw those lines out. Whatever you're doing that bonds you to the world, what God is saying is you're cheating on me. In my eyes, that's adultery. And so that is why he says, it upsets me to the point where I say, now you become my enemy. You betrayed me. Lord help us. So he says, surrender. Let's look at some of the characteristics of surrender. First of all, to surrender means to yield the power. Now, I know we all think, and we do, have free will. That is the gift that God has given us. Sometimes I think it's a curse. I almost would rather be a robot and ensure my way to heaven. The angels don't have that choice. They are express creations of God designed to do his will. But us, God has said, I'm going to grant you this free will. And then the oxymoron about that is now he throws a whole bunch of stuff out there and says, there's good, there's evil. Make some choices. And the evil stuff seemed to feel good. You ever seen Brooklyn, a Vampire in Brooklyn? When he was like, evil is good. Well, that's the problem. If you look at even some of the natural stuff like food, I've been eating healthy lately, and all the good food for your body tastes nasty to you. And all the bad stuff for your body tastes great. I had to buy the kids some pizza, and I had to go into sackcloth and ashes not to eat it. I'm bringing, you talking about temptation. I'm bringing the pizza to them, and it's just like the smell. You ever seen the cartoons? I'm sitting there like, drooling at the mouth, and all I have is a bowl of some dry, nasty salmon and some brown rice with nothing on it. And I gave them their pizza and had to walk away. And they opened it up, and the cheese was bubbling, and the pepperonis was sizzling, and it's my favorite too. Adrian goes, Mr. Ellerbe, you want some? No. Yeah, but no. And it hurt because I really wanted to dive into that pizza. But I understand if I did that, what would happen is the effects would be negative on my body. Same thing when it comes to sin. So God says, yeah, since you have free will, I want you to make a choice. Either you're going to use your own power, you're going to hang on to what I've given you, or you're going to surrender it over to me. Now, this is the crazy part about it. Even though God says, I've given you power to do your own will, really, you have no power. Because at the end of the day, God's power is going to super exceed anybody else's. Meaning this, all those gangsters, pimps, drug dealers, politicians, liars, horrible, anybody out there who say, God, I've heard of you, but since I got the power to do what I want to do, I'm going to do it and see if it can buck heads with you. At the end of the day, meaning when they take their last breath and their tongue cleave to the roof of their mouths and the blood slows down in their veins, they are going to meet God on his terms. Now, all of a sudden, they're going to have to be confronted with the fact they have no power. At that point, they're going to say, I can't choose to go to hell or heaven. At that point, they can't say, well, I'm making a choice to go back and do it again. There is no more choices. The free will is gone then. The power is strict. So right now, we have to do the proper thing with the power that God has given us with this free will, which is surrendered back over to him. So therefore, if free will is a gift, the awesome part about serving God is when he gives you a gift, you return it back to him. You let him use it for his glory. It's like when you get to heaven and he puts the crown on your head. You ain't going to rock it in heaven for eternity. You're going to take it off and say, I'm unworthy. Thank you for the gift, but it really belongs to you. Because without you, Lord, I would have never even made it to heaven. So we cast our crowns back down at his feet and say, worthy is the lamb that is slain. So now, the problem with surrendering is this. When you surrender, first of all, you have to give up power. You have to give up control. Now, that's the tough one. Many people can't get the Holy Ghost Many people can't get their breakthrough because it's a control thing. I know me, when I went down to that altar and God filled me with the Holy Spirit, one of the toughest things was for me to give up control. I wanted to be cool and calm and collective at all times. I didn't want to look silly. I didn't want to look soft. I didn't want to look embarrassed in front of the people. Not only did God come in and do what he had to do, but when he filled me with the Holy Spirit, he laid me out on my back. And you talking about a crazy feeling? I used to watch the TV evangelists and stuff and be like, man, whatever. They fake. You know, they come up there and be like, you want God to do something for you? And they be like, yes! And lay hands. People. Then sometimes when it really get good, they take the coat off, wave it, and about 20 people just fall out. And I'm just like, man, that's a bunch of crap. I'm watching that like that stuff never happens. And sure enough, what made me a believer is when I got filled with the Holy Spirit, I fell out, but nobody touched me. Wasn't no evangelist, there wasn't no TV crew, wasn't nobody blowing on me, none of that stuff. It was nothing but the power of God. And in my mind, I'm going, I'm falling. Can't keep it together. This is motor skills 101. Stand up. And, you know, I'm falling, and next you know, boom, I'm on my back. And if they wouldn't pick me up, I might be still there today. So, the point that I'm trying to make is, you have to be able to surrender not only your power, but control. We want to drive the car. God said, I'm the driver. I mean, even in your natural relationships, you'll find if you're a controller or not. Some people, if you marry a controller, woe unto you. Everything that you do, they go, why are you doing that? You don't do it this way. You should be doing it that way. What were you thinking when you did that? Huh? Oh, I said, if you marry a controller, don't blame me, blame Antoine. You said, say that again. No, but trust me, you will find then that people have a tendency to not only want to control their lives, but they want to control other people's lives. And so the point that I'm trying to make is, we have to realize we can't drive all the time. We have to say, Lord, you're driving, and I know that with you, I'm going to get to my destination safely. But me, Kev going to wreck the car at some point. Kev going to look and run into something at some point. So God is saying, you got to surrender not only your power, but you got to give up control or possession of any or another upon compulsion or demand. So meaning this, anything you possess, you give it up. You surrendered it over. So that means if you're hanging on to him, her, it, or whatever, it can be an attitude that you got. And you're like, man, I don't want to get that up. I like muscling people around with my temper. I like manipulating people with my brain. I like all of these things that people ooh, ah, and about. So it could be something mental. It could be something physical and so on and so forth. But at some point, God is going to demand your possessions. He's going to say, take whatever that is and lay it down at the cross. Surrender it over to me. Now, you talking about tough? Because, see, it's easy to give up cigarettes if that's not a problem. When I first got saved, cussing went just like that. It wasn't a big problem. I have a decent vocabulary. I can come up with other words besides cuss words. Now, if I'm straight from the hood and only got 2 words, I might have to mix in a couple. But, you know, my vocabulary was pretty extensive. I cussed just because. But when I got saved, immediately, boom, it was gone. But what happens is, you find other things as you walk along and follow Christ that, man, I didn't know that was still there. Man, I didn't know I still wanted to hang on to that. Oh, that resurfaced. I thought that was gone. You know, other stuff though, you quick to jump on. So when I got saved and stopped cussing, I was aware of everybody else that cuss. Hey man, watch your mouth. You know, rebuking everything that came out of everybody's mouth. That's nothing but the words of Satan. But over time, you'll find, whoa, other things in me is popping up and I have to take that. Just like I gave up cussing or whatever and say, Lord, here you go. Throw it away. Get rid of it. Tough. So anyway, how about this? It says to give up completely. Oh, here we go. Surrender. More. To give up completely or agree to forego, especially in favor. Preferring, meaning in favor. Preferring or deeming something to be more important than your will of another. Now, let's read this again. I'm loving these definitions. First of all, it says to give up completely. Now, that's a tough one. The word Lord, or the name Lord, or the title Lord, when you look at it, L-O-R-D, capital L-O-R-D, to make Christ Lord of your life means you allow him to be Lord over every aspect of your life. Not 99.9% of your life. You know why I sighed? Because it's a work in progress. I mean, I'm not standing up here trying to tell you this like I got it all together. The reason I'm sighing is because I understand that fundamental struggle. There's some stuff in all of us that if we could hide it from God, we would. If we could tuck it under the bed, be like, you don't know this one, man. Because I remember as a high schooler and a kid growing up, stuff my father never found. I hid it like I got this one deep in the bed, a ditch in the backyard. Daddy don't go in the back, you only cut the grass. And I had it all hid. But when it comes to the Lord, he will get in your mind. He gets in your heart. He searches everything about you and locates it and says, this ain't right. I need to be Lord over this too. And you go, that? But this one for me. He's like, that's your problem. You need to give it over to me. And that's where it becomes tough. Complete lordship. Even your major decisions in life. Now, we ain't spooky and we ain't so deep that we can't dress ourselves in money without checking in and saying, God, does this match? Lord, should I eat hamburgers or french fries today? No, we don't have to get that deep. But I'm talking about stuff that can affect the course of your life. Stuff that messes up your walk with him. Stuff that can interfere with your relationship with him. Those are things that you stop and say, Lord, what do you have to say about this? That's lordship. And he's going, that's what I'm talking about. You checking in. Versus, let me go and do it and hope you support it. That's not the proper attitude. So he's saying you have to give it over completely or agree to forego, especially in favor. Meaning this, you said I could do that, but I'm going to forego it because there's something greater than what I am trying to do or what I'm trying to hold on to. So now you're looking at it and you say, you know what? All of this stuff I'm holding on to, I will surrender it over to the Lord because what I'm gaining is better than what I'm holding on to. Now, it doesn't seem like that in the beginning because sometimes God's rewards are not immediate. But the stuff that we hold on to gives us immediate gratification. And that is why it's so hard to give up. We're sitting here looking at heaven, no telling when we're going to get there. And yet we sitting here looking at him, her, or it right here in front of us. And we're going, but this right here will get me right today. I'm lonely now. I'm hungry right now. You know what I'm saying? All this, I'm mad now. And I'm going to manifest my anger to your nose. So the point that I'm trying to make is we have to stop and say, even though this benefits me now, I'm willing to say, Lord, I'm preferring to give it up because you're greater than what I'm holding on to. Man, got to stop and pause and say, Lord, help me. You see what I'm saying? When you start looking at the art of surrender, you're looking at a big task. I know we listen to the word, hear the word, and frivolously think about it. Surrender, yeah, give it up. Oh, man, it ain't easy. When you think about what Jesus had to give up for us, I mean, when he could have saved his own life, and he said, Lord, I don't want this to happen. But nevertheless, not my will, but thy will be done. None of us in here, at this point, is willing to give up our lives. That's it. That's what we really fight is hang on to. But when you can say, I will give you that, I'm not talking about your physical life. See, Jesus died physically, naturally. I'm talking about your life, your carnal life, everything that's about you, the way you think, the way you act, the way you respond. All of that stuff is your life. And so now when he says, give all that over to me and let me now start to teach you the proper way of living, the proper way of thinking, the proper way of responding. And you're going, but I've been doing it like this for 22 years. I've been doing it like this for 30 years, 19 years, however old you are. And now God steps in and says, surrender it all. Most people fight. Most people say, nah, man, you ain't getting my stuff. I wish somebody would come to Kev's house talking about, give me your motorcycle. I mean, they're going to have to knock me out on the front lawn to take my stuff. Bottom line, I wish somebody would carjack me. I mean, it's going to be, at that point I might say, look, man, tell you what, you can take the car, but my blood's going to be all in the car. You know, you ain't getting too far. I'm going to leave some evidence. You know, I have a hard time giving up stuff like that. But yet, when it comes to God, you have to give it up. You cannot win the battle. More on these definitions. How about this? To give oneself up and to the power of another, especially as a prisoner. Now, when you look at the Bible, or when you look at the natural, it stinks to have to wave the white flag and become someone else's prisoner. That is in the natural. So now you're looking at your enemy, they closing in on you, and you backing up, and y'all realize that, man, it's futile. You throw down your guns, and you come out like this. How embarrassing is that? and say, I will go with y'all to save my life. But in this context, that's the only thing that can save your life. You actually gain your life when you surrender over to the Lord. So now, if you look at this, it says, to give up power of another, especially as a prisoner, to give oneself over to something. All right, now, look at the Ephesians 3:1. It says, for this cause, I, Paul, the prisoner of Jesus Christ, for you, the Gentiles. My man Paul sets it off, and he says, man, you know what? I was riding on my horse, and it was around noontime, and I was blinded, knocked off my horse, and the Lord spoke to me and said, Saul, why is you persecuting me? And I said, Lord, who are you? And he said, I am Jesus, whom thou persecuted. It is hard for you to kick against the brick wall. That's what he had to tell Paul. Now, Paul, at that point, had to throw his hands up and say, Lord, I will become captive to you. I will now be your prisoner, meaning whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. Wherever you send me, I'll go. Whatever you want me to think, I'll think. However you want me to respond, I'll respond. I won't argue back. I won't fight against you. I won't undermine what you stand for. Man, preaching to myself. And I'm going to tell you, that ain't easy. Because even in the natural, if you become a prisoner of somebody, at some point you're looking to escape. But with Jesus, we are happy to be the prisoner of him. Some people look for excuses to escape them. People will sometimes say, I'll be a prisoner for a little bit. But as soon as I look at an opening to get out, I'm gone. But a true prisoner of Jesus Christ says, I'm happy to be a prisoner. When he went down to hell and preached 3 days, he said, I've taken the captivity captive, led them captive. Meaning this, the ones that were actually prisoners of the devil, he took them and he led them captive to him. So now that's an awesome thing to be a prisoner of Jesus Christ. You sitting back like, man, this is the best jail cell I've ever been in. This is the best warden I've ever set up under. Because when you sit under Jesus Christ, it's good. He says, take your burdens and give them over to me. For he says, take all your cares and cast them upon me. You know, and so now when you do that, you're relieving yourself. You're like, Lord, you're taking good care of me. I have no problem with it. So look at my man Paul. He says, man, I'm a prisoner to Jesus Christ. For you, the Gentiles. I therefore, the prisoner of the Lord, beseech you that ye walk worthy of the vocation wherein ye are called. Now look at this. My man Paul says, therefore, the prisoner of the Lord. He said, every one of you, once you give your life to Christ, we become prisoners of him. In other words, at one point, we was fighting against it. At one point, you like, Lord, I see you coming after me, but I'm going to run. I'm going to dodge you. And then when you corner me, I ain't going down easy. Anybody ever seen a rat? A rat would normally run from you. But you corner a rat, you's in a fight. That bad boy rare, and I don't want no pieces of no rat. Another one, squirrels look cute, don't they? Yeah. My friend had a pit bull one time, and you know, squirrels all, you know, get little fluffy tails. So squirrel really is just a rat with a tail. But one of my buddies got a pit bull, captured this squirrel, caught the squirrel, cornered it. Man, that squirrel tore his jaw out. Just went off, and the little squirrel hands was just a work. You know, so the point that I'm trying to make is when something is cornered, most of the time before it surrenders, it says, let me fight. And so when it comes to the Lord, when he comes looking for you, when he greets you and says, all your life, you and I have had a problem with each other. I love you, but you're doing things your way. I can't have that. And you go, yeah, Lord, that sounds good, but I enjoy it. Now, you two are at odds. At some point, you have to say, Lord, I want to give it up to you, and I will follow you. I will become your prisoner. And Paul says, I want you to walk worthy of the vocation wherewith ye are called. Meaning, once you become a prisoner, be a good prisoner. Be glad to be a prisoner of Jesus Christ. Don't complain. Say, Lord, just shackle me. Take me, lead me, guide me, feed me, water me. I'm totally relying on you 24/7. All right, so here we go. It says, I therefore, the prisoner of the Lord, beseech you that you walk worthy of the vocation wherewith ye are called. 2 Timothy 1:8. Look at this. This is sweet and juicy. He says, be not thou therefore ashamed of the testimony of the Lord. Meaning this, don't be ashamed about being a prisoner of Jesus Christ. Say it loud. And I ain't talking about I'm black and I'm proud. I'm talking about you going out there saying, yeah, I'm a slave to Jesus Christ. Yeah, I'm a prisoner. Paul said it all the time. He was like, yo, man, I'm a slave to him. I'm a prisoner. And I'm proud to be. We're not afraid to say that. He says, yeah, don't be ashamed of it. And he says, nor of me, his prisoner. Once again, it says, but be thou partakers of the afflictions of the gospel according to the power of God. Meaning this, once you give it up, he says, matter of fact, you not only become a prisoner of Jesus Christ, but you also are going to identify with the affliction of being a prisoner of Jesus Christ. You will come under persecution. You will come under scrutiny. You will be lied to about. You will be lied to, talked about. All of these things are going to come with the territory. And this is the part that makes people say, any chance I get to escape, I will. Because when I first met him and broke down and surrendered over to him, I didn't know that being a prisoner of Jesus Christ was going to also make me an enemy of the world. Now, all of a sudden, you find that you got friends that don't want to hang around you no more. You got people looking for all your flaws and faults because you done went out and confessed that I'm a Jesus lover. I belong to Jesus Christ. Now, you got the devil messing with you. That's not including your friends and family. Now you got your professor messing with you. Anybody and everybody that the devil can use to make a person second think whether they want to be captive to Jesus Christ, he will. And trust me when I tell you this. If you want to get free, Lord ain't going to keep you in a cell. See, the awesome thing about being a prisoner of Jesus Christ, he leaves the cell door open. He's like, it's wide open. You can leave when you want to. It's your choice. And I guarantee you, Diablo's standing right outside that door like, come on now, come on, come on, come on. Yeah. Yeah, I used to have my dog Caesar. He cracks me up, man, this guy. Caesar, I have to bait him in sometimes to do what I want him to do. Always, but see, he got a weakness. I know Caesar's weakness. Caesar has a hankering for some reason he likes going up in the upstairs. He learned how to go up the steps, and now it's fun time for him. That's what he does. He's like, yo, I'm going to go up the steps. But the problem is Caesar don't come back down. So Caesar goes up there and he stands up looking at him. And it makes me so mad. I'm like, Caesar, come on. I'm like, I'm not playing. Get down here. Then he just full-blown laid down one time. Let me know I'm not coming. That's the telltale sign right there. Like, I'm going to lay down and let you know what it's really about. So what I have to do is do like the devil does to many people. To get him to come on down, I go and I got this bag of treats that he can't resist. And I shake that bag. I don't even have to open the bag. I just shake it. And here comes right down the steps, snatch him, take him right back and make him a prisoner to me. Okay. Now Caesar wasn't tempted by the snacks. He could stay up there and run around. But because he's so drawn to those snacks, once he comes down the steps, I lock him up in his cage and he's there for the night. He hates being in his cage. Same thing with the enemy. When God opens that door and says, you are a prisoner by will, by choice. You surrendered it over to me by choice. I ain't going to keep you here. And the devil tempts someone to go back out in the world. The problem with that is as soon as they come out to get the snack, he grabs you, takes you, and puts you in a cell that you don't want to be. Once a person is taken back into the cell of the devil, trust me, you will find that the conditions are hot, sweaty, and nasty. America, even though we got some bad prisons, our prison system is a lot better than some of these other countries. There's some joints that I don't want to go to prison in. At least we got air conditions in our prisons. Could you imagine going to prison in Mexico? Going down to Mexico? They might turn the heat on and torture. Turn it down. You're killing me in here, man. Just pull the sun right down to next to yourself. And shine it on, right there, Daddy. I mean, it's amazing, some of those conditions, and you going, man, I might have been a prisoner in the United States and I hated it, but boy, it's a walk in the park compared to some other places. So the same thing when it comes to the Lord. Sometimes we get upset being a prisoner of Jesus Christ. We surrender most of everything over to him at first, and then we realize, man, I got some stuff. And that stuff that you want to hang on to, the Satan is standing right outside the door, going, come on out, and you can get it. And we get close to the door like, can you just bring it in? No, you got to come out. And so once we step outside, now we're free game to the enemy. And so this is what we don't want. Now, all of a sudden, God has to step in again and say, be my prisoner. Surrender it over to me. And that's tough, man. Some stuff, once you get it back in your system, man, it's like pulling teeth to get it back out. And so that's why he says, yeah, man, you got to be a prisoner, a willful prisoner, and you will become a partaker of the afflictions of the gospel, according to the power of God. Meaning this, how are we going to reign with him if we don't want to suffer? How are we going to reap all the benefits of being a Christian and we don't want to go through the trials, tribulation, and the fire? I don't want a Purple Heart for doing nothing. If I'm in the army, war, anything, let me earn it. I don't want to be the guy pushing the pen and these guys out there really fighting the battle and then they give me a Purple Heart. You know, unless I've written the best dissertation ever. But the point that I'm trying to make is we want people to earn stuff. There's a guy, a preacher, hurt my feelings to hear this, who made up this story about being a Navy SEAL. Did y'all see that? Yeah, he got exposed, y'all. Man, he's a preacher somewhere out in some country place. But what happened is he didn't think that the story would ever catch up with him. He was out there telling all his congregation for years that he was this Navy SEAL. Ever since he was a kid, he wanted to be a Navy SEAL. He joined the Navy, but never even went to war. He didn't do anything in the Navy. So what he was doing is he made up this whole story in his mind, because that's what he always wanted to do. And he was telling his congregation. He even came with some outfit and some medals and everything that he didn't earn. You see what I'm saying? And he didn't think it would catch up with him until these recent events. So what happened is everybody's pumping up the Navy SEALs now. So all the newscasters are looking for ex-Navy SEALs to do interviews with. Well, his whole town knew about he was this Navy SEAL. So guess what the news do? Come straight down to the church. Yeah. You were a Navy SEAL, right? Oh, yes, I was. He does the interview thinking that his town probably is so small that it would never get out like that. Navy SEAL watching. Now, he had details and everything about the Navy SEALs, but a real Navy SEAL knows the difference. And that guy's looking, and he's like, something ain't right about that. He reports it. The real people come down on him, find out he never even was a Navy SEAL. Made up the whole story, but wanted the benefits. He wanted the rewards, but never put in the work. And to be a Navy SEAL, you going in knowing, man, I'm going to get the benefit, but it's going to be hell and high water to get it. You got to suffer. Same thing with Christ. Wouldn't we be sorry Christians if we made it to heaven without some wounds and battles? Wouldn't we be sorry Christians if God let us be kindergarten Christians and never let trials and tribulations come our way to make us and break us and get us better? I'm glad that God loves us enough to not let us be sorry. Because if it was up to us, we would go through this thing cool, calm, and collected. If we can choose and pick our battles, we sure enough would. I'd be like, nah, God, that's too big. Give me the little ones. You know? I'd be like, give me a slight headache for today. And let me overcome that. I had a headache this morning, but it's gone. I feel all right. Don't give me bills. Don't give me my own personal struggles. Don't give me folks talking about me. Don't give me all of this stuff that's heavy on me. Give me the light stuff. That's what we want. You know, but God says, man, you'll never get better. You'll never get stronger if you don't increase your weight. You know, to get strong, some of y'all athletes, you got to increase the weight or something. Can't stay the same. And so God lets us know, yeah, as my prisoner, you're going to suffer. You're going to go through some afflictions. Look at Paul. Paul runs it back and says, Paul, a prisoner of Jesus Christ, and Timothy, our brother, unto Philemon, our dearly beloved, the fellow laborer. Meaning this, not only is he a prisoner, he said Timothy and anybody else that serves Christ is a prisoner. Finally, Philemon, man, this word makes me so mad. Philemon 1 and 9. Yet for love's sake, I rather beseech thee, being such and one as Paul the aged, and now also a prisoner of Jesus Christ. So now, Paul, when he finally surrendered, he said, you know what? It's for love's sake. You know, when you really love somebody, you let go of your will. Trust me, you're going to learn this when you get married. Man, marriage is about commitment and it's about compromising. Surrendering your will to somebody else's to make you two get along. Because you're going to find that y'all got two separate wills. Yeah, I know it's all gravy while you're dating. Just for all you lovers out there. When you're dating, the difference is you ain't got to go home with that person most of the time. Even if you are shacking up when you're dating. It's still the reality of I can leave when I want and go back to my crib, or I can go and live somewhere else and we can call it quits. But when you get married, you realize, whoa, I have brought all of my will into this household. She has brought all of her will into this household. I'm trying to hang on to mine, and she's trying to hang on to hers. At some point, we're going to have to surrender our will over to each other for love. Simple as that. So now, look at this. The final part of the definition. To give oneself up into the power of another. Meaning this, to yield, to allow somebody to control you. Now, once again, it's real hard to fathom this in the natural. Anybody ever watch the UFC? Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. When I first started mixed martial arts, I was a wrestler. So wrestlers have a tendency, I didn't understand this whole philosophy of laying on your back, looking submissive, and still being able to fight. I looked at that as weak. I'm like, why is this guy on his back? Well, I saw a guy, young boy, I was in a match with him, and he fell on his back immediately and just laid there. You know, like, just jump on me and choke me. And I said, okay. So I dive on top of him and start choking him, the old school choke too, where you got the hands right on the neck, both hands. All of a sudden, this guy snatches my arms off and puts me in what is called an arm bar, where you wrap the legs around the person's neck, you're choking them with your legs because you got their arm extended. So one of two things is going to happen. Either you're going to choke them or you're going to snap their elbow out of the joint. So you have one choice. You can either get choked and go to sleep, lay in his arm, or you can let your arm be broke, and the last choice is you can tap out. To me, that is the worst. My motto is break it. Or either I'm going to go straight to sleep, and then can't. You know, I have a heart especially to a young boy who I trained to wrestle. He went off and got some mixed martial arts training, came back, and I'm thinking, man, this cat, he's my squire. I'm about to choke. And now I'm finding myself being choked almost to sleep. Now, because of all the people around, and I got that attitude of never surrender, I said, can't do it. And he's going to have to put me to sleep. I picked this young boy up and slammed him down, and he ended up letting go, muscled my arm out of it, and got through, and I had to get the, whoo, that was close. You almost killed me. But the point is, I still refused to quit. I was like, man, I can't quit. I can't tap out. I can't surrender. This is the way of the world. But when God puts the chokehold on you, it's a wrap. You going to sleep. You getting something broke. You got one choice. Tap out. That's it. You got one choice. Lord, I'm done. No mas. No mas. Too much. And see, the awesome thing about the arm bar and the natural, you can control the amount of pressure that you put on it. So if the person isn't responding to the amount that you have, you can increase it. And when you wind it up, everybody got a breaking point to where they go, that's the spot right there. You got it. And they tap out. I've seen some guys though, they just say break it. Hoist Gracie, let him break it. He had that arm bent back. He's like, no, I will not tap. Snap. You know? So the point is, some people are so stubborn that they have to get their arm broke before they realize, I can't win this fight. With the Lord, we don't ever want to get to a point where he has to do that type of stuff. We have to just say, Lord, before I even get in the ring with you, the box, I'm coming in tapping. I'm coming in like, I'm good. Before I get in the ring, I'm throwing the towel in. I'm like, I don't even want to battle with you, Lord. Many of us, though, will at least get in the ring and go a couple rounds. Like, I think I might be able to win this. But after you get hit in the face a couple times, you realize, I can't win. And then you got the stubborn ones who say, I don't care how you beat me, how you rough me up, I'm never going to surrender. Those are the ones, unfortunately, that's going to find out at the end time that they had no power at all. They fought a useless battle that led them to nowhere. So to live, you have to surrender. That is the only time a man or a woman should say, here, take it all, I'm done. I quit. It's all yours. Because if you want to live, you got to surrender it over to Christ. I'm not talking about natural living. I'm talking about eternal. How about this? Look at this. It says, neither yield your members as instruments of unrighteousness unto sin. Meaning this, if you don't yield to one thing, you're going to yield to something else. Trust me, this isn't neutral. Your life is not neutral. If you yield to sin, then really you're surrendering to that. So you're going to surrender one way or another. The question is who you surrendering to. So now the Lord says, are you going to surrender over to Satan and sin? And he says, but yield yourselves unto God as those that are alive from the dead, and your members are instruments of righteousness unto God. He says, you know what? He says, you yield yourself over to me, and you will be alive from the dead. Meaning this, a person that is not knowing Christ is a dead man walking. If you don't know the Lord, you are walking around dead in sin. Yeah, you're breathing air. Yeah, you're thinking and functioning and you look alive. But on the inside, spiritually, you're dead. And so now the question is, Do you want to live a dead life, or do you want to surrender over to the Lord and have a new life, a born-again experience? And this is what he's saying in this particular scripture. He says, if you go ahead and you yield to me, I will give you life. Now, everybody wants life. The alternative to it, though, is you yield to sin, and sin leads to death. So now he's saying, look, this is a win-win situation. You want to live? Surrender it over to me. And then he says, and I will use your members as instruments of righteousness unto God. Now check it out. God grabs remote control, and he says, if you yield to me, I'm going to get on the joystick, and I'm going to have everything that you do represent me. I will tell you where to go. I tell you what to eat. I tell you who to talk to, not to talk to. Tell you what relationships you should be in and not to be in. Tell you how to think, all of this stuff. And those, if you do that, you will yield over to me to righteousness. Now, that's easier said than done. I told y'all in the beginning, I said sometimes I wish that we didn't have free will. I wish God can just say, man, I'm going to control you. At least you know you're going to heaven. But see, when you're down here, every once in a while, he's on the joystick, and we, anybody play video games? Nothing worse, man. See, I remember Atari. See, I had stuff like that. One joystick, one button. Now you need a degree to play a video game. But it was back in the day, it was just a square box with a joystick and a button. And I had Space Invaders, and I had, what's that joint? The Asteroids, and Donkey Kong that looked a mess. Stick figure. And Pac-Man looked awful. I mean, those games were so primitive. Now I thought, you look like you're watching TV. I saw a commercial about a video game. I thought it was a movie. So I'm like, what movie is this? And then at the end, it was like, rated something for an adult. I'm like, what kind of mess? But the point is, for a true story, I went to the barbershop. It was a football game on a big screen TV. I watched like 5 minutes of it, and then it just stopped, and the players were just sitting there going like this. And I'm sitting there like, what happened to the game? That was a video game. Thought it was a real game, man. I said, dude, this is ridiculous, man. Our football games on video games was X's and O's. That was the video game. I'm going around the corner. You see my X? You see my X? Now, this just blows my mind. And I can't learn them. I just said, man, I'm just pushing random buttons. My men doing whatever they want, dancing. It's like, why is my man doing that? Anyway, so I just gave it up, man. Now I say I'm too mature for it. That's my excuse. Man, that's for kids, man. But the point I'm trying to make is when I used to play the video games and I'm controlling my man, every once in a while, it would stop. And I'm sitting there moving it, but my stuff ain't doing what I wanted to do. And that's so frustrating. You're like, man, I'm controlling you. Do what I want you to do. Same thing with the Lord. When he grabs the joystick and he says, I want to control you. I want to be able to make you do what I want you to do. And we, for whatever reason, stop and buck up against it. Now, we're back at square zero. We're back at first base, going, well, Lord, here we are again. I got some will in me that I don't really want to give up. So what we got to do to resolve this? And that's tough. That's what you're really saying. You're saying, I got some stuff here, yeah, I'm keeping real. I want to do what I want to do. So what do you got to do about this? And the Lord says, well, let me start off by just slightly giving you some pressure. And you go, yeah, that's not bad, but it ain't, I'm cool with that. He said, oh, okay. Let me go ahead and give it a little more. Yeah, a little tight, but I can still, I'm good. And then you go, okay. Get it all the way down there, and you go, oh, that's the spot right there. And we don't want that. We don't want to get to that point. So that is why we're to yield our members over here. How about this? Final scripture. Well, actually, Romans 6:19. It says, I speak after the manner of men because of the infirmities of your flesh. Meaning this, when Paul ever states that, what he's saying is I'm lowering it down to a level because you all are somewhat carnal. You're weak in the flesh. You're still having some problems understanding spiritual things. And so he says, I'm going to lower this down to a level. And he says, for as ye have yielded your members, servants, to uncleanliness, and to iniquity unto iniquity. Now look at this. Paul sets the standard. He says, you're going to surrender. And what happened is these people yielded, but look what they yielded to. He says, you have yielded your flesh, your members. Wait a minute, where's that scripture? Oh, okay. For as ye have yielded your members, servants, to uncleanness, but look what he does. And to iniquity unto iniquity. Meaning this, when you yield to the devil, it's never, let me just give you a little bit of sin. It's let me pile it on. Let me take you from one level of sin to the next level of sin. Let me compound sin. Remember the video we watched a couple weeks ago that was dealing with the Jesus skit when the girl got further and further away. Look at all the sins that came into that girl's life. Initially, it was just lust. She was cool with that. You don't see the problem. I might be dealing with one issue. But what you don't understand is these sins are collaborating with each other. Those spirits are huddling up and saying, we got a victim here. Which one of y'all can get in? Which one of y'all are more tempting to this person than the other? Because once that one gets in, he comes back and says, I'm in, y'all. Let me open up the back door. You don't see the other ones coming in. So now all of a sudden, lust comes in. You yield to that. Then lust goes off because condemnation hits your mind and all that other stuff. Now all of a sudden, you just let down all your spiritual walls. And then other sins start coming in. And then years later, you wake up and like, dude, I just wanted to have one night of passion. I just wanted to have one drink. I just wanted to go out to one spot. I just wanted to do one thing. And now all of a sudden, I'm looking at miles and miles and layers of sin. And so he's saying this is the problem with yielding yourself or your members over to unrighteousness. And then he goes on to say, even so, see, there's hope. He says, so now, just as back in the day, before you understood who God is, who Jesus Christ is, he says you did that. He says, even so now, yield your members servants to righteousness unto holiness. So he's saying, once you come to yourself, like the prodigal son we talked about last week, he went out there, never thinking that once he went out to party and spent all his money, he was going to blow through it all and then be confronted with the reality that I'm out there. I need to get back home. And then he had to come back home humbly. So Paul is saying, listen, at this point you need to yield your members as servants to righteousness unto holiness. Look at all the stuff, and we can go into all different types of sin and problems that people have, but the bottom line, the sum of it all, is whatever it is that is standing between a person and God, they have to package it, bundle it all up, and take it out to the garbage and say, take this away. Problem is, when we turn, we go, accept this, and wrap it back up. There's some stuff in my house that I know I need to throw away. But for some reason, every once in a while I get it, but I might need this. And that's where the enemy gets people. I got all kind of garbage, man. Stuff I had in grade school. You know what I'm saying? Pictures I drew. That I know I never use. And I'm like, oh, I'm hanging on to this kindergarten picture I drew, stick figure. This is sweet. On the refrigerator as a grown man. It's hot. You know, the point I'm trying to make is my wife constantly, why don't you throw this away? You're not even, I got some shirts that's about this big. I mean, they wrinkled, they faded, some pants, man, it's tight, corduroys. I was like, you don't need that. That was, you had that in 7th grade. Yeah, but I might need it again. What if I lose weight? I mean, all kinds of stupid stuff we use to justify hanging on to stuff. But the bottom line is, at some point you got to wake up and say, man, this stuff is no good for me. Let me get rid of it. And so when we say, Lord, the sum of it all is let me trash, take all this, bag it up, and take it out and let you take it away. We can't go back and get into it. My pastor tells a story about some boots, cowboy boots, that his mother bought him. And he said he loved his boots. And he wore those boots every day until they wore out. And his mother said, son, get rid of those boots. He says, I'm not going to get rid of these boots because these here some good. That's what he said. So she had to take his boots and throw them away. Pastor went, got the boots out the trash, and hid the boots in the basement to the point where they stayed there for years. He almost hid them from himself, you know. And he said he went back in the trash to get them because even though they was worn out, tore up, in his mind he kept saying, but these here is so good. And he hid them little boots down in the basement behind the furnace for years. You know, he outgrew the boots, didn't need them no more, couldn't use them, but those was the boots he just loved. Same thing with some issues in people's lives. There's some stuff that we go, man, it's useless to me. It's no good for me. It's too tight, don't fit, got holes in it, messing us up. We need to get rid of it. And we go, the Lord will take it to the trash. And then as soon as we have an opportunity, here we go, going out to the trash to dig it up. And so at some point we got to yield it and give it over to the Lord. Why? Because look at Mark 8 and 34 and 36. And it reads as this. And when ye have called the people unto, and when he had called the people unto him, with his disciples also. He said unto them, whosoever will, now notice this, here's the choice. He said, whosoever will. That means it's your choice. Whosoever will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. Here's the yielding part. Meaning this, you going, man, I'm having a ball. I'm enjoying life. I'm loving it. I got this, that, and that lined up for the future. And all of a sudden, you stop, check out what Jesus is offering, and you say, you know what? Even though I can obtain all of this stuff that will appeal to my flesh, I'm going to drop it and turn and follow Christ. Now, that's a tough choice. But look at Sodom and Gomorrah. Look at Lot and his wife. When Lot and his wife was in Sodom and Gomorrah, the Lord said, leave this place and don't even look back. Meaning, walk away from everything that you enjoy, everything you know, everything you love. This was a tough task. I know we sit and we go, well, I mean, the city was burning up. But at the same time, it's the heart. That's the problem. His wife loved that city. She loved the excitement, the music, the dancing. She loved her social status. She loved her gaudy jewelry. She loved all of these things that that city offered. And it was in her heart. And God told him to leave that city, drop it if you want to live. Drop it, run, and don't even look back. If you look back, it's going to lead to death. If you don't, you'll live. Now that seemed like an easy choice. But can you imagine you're running away from Cincinnati? You hear people screaming, bombs going off, all kind of stuff. It is very hard for you not to go, what's going on back there? My man Lot understood my life is more important to me than looking back to see what I'm leaving. And here he's booking, and she's running behind. And all of a sudden she turns like, man, I sure am going to miss. And when she looked back, immediately turned to a pillar of salt. This is how Lot had to respond. Lot couldn't even look back at her. He couldn't even stop and go, babe, nothing. If he had her hand, this is what he had to do. And keep it moving. That is surrender. That is giving up your will. That is you saying nothing is more important to hang on to than my soul, than Jesus Christ. If he's willing to leave his wife without even looking to see what happened, man, I'm sure he loved her. But man, that's some discipline. You know, I'd hate to think me and Sonya running away and she freeze up and lock up and I get to, sorry baby, the picture over the shoulder. I'll look at it later. But the point is, that's what he had to do. And so look what Jesus says. He says, whosoever will come after me. Jesus is who we're running after. I love that Todd Tribbett song, Chasing After You. Man, that one gets me there all the time. On Sunday mornings I can iron. I'll be chasing after you. Trying to iron. Lord. So he says, this is who we're chasing after. But look what he says. Let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. Oh yeah, this is where it gets tight. See, chasing after Jesus is one thing. But then when you stop and say, whoa, you want me to pick this up? This is heavy. You say, yeah, get it. Come on, I carry mine, you got to carry yours. I give it a shot. And you carry it, okay, this ain't too bad, but after a while, you go, whoa, get a little heavier. Uh-oh, man, this ain't no joke carrying the cross. Most people say, forget this mess. For whosoever will save his life shall lose it. Meaning this, if a person says, Lord, I'm going to fight you for my life. I'm going to resist you for my life. Lord, me and you are going to have problems. I'm going to go to war for my will. I refuse to surrender over to you. What's going to happen is you're going to lose your life. And I'm not talking about your natural life. I'm talking about the eternal life. Wouldn't you rather give up your short 75, 80 years of life? That translates into about 23,000 and some change days. When you think about it on those terms, that's not, imagine if you coming out of college making 23,000 a year. You're furious because you're poor. You're like, man, I'm in the poor status. 23 grand, I might as well go look for change on the street. I can find 23 grand in a year. You know, I'm sure them dudes with the signs make 23 grand a year. So you see, that's not a high number. And those are really the amount of days that we're here on this earth. But people would say, I will exchange those 23 to 25,000 days on earth to enjoy versus eternity. It doesn't compare. That is a blink of time compared to eternity. But some people say it's more important for those 75 years, 80 years, however many years we get, for me to enjoy than to give it over to the Lord for eternity. So look what Jesus says. For whosoever will save his life shall lose it. Or whosoever shall lose his life for my sake and the gospel, the same shall save it. Now, that means at some point when you're fighting against God, whatever it is, whether it's you coming to God and you don't want to do it, or you already belong to God and you got stuff you want to hang on to. Either way, you got to surrender your will. And so now you're in that predicament where you're scrapping and you finally say, man, that's it. I'm throwing in the towel. I'm done. He says, when you say, Lord, I'm surrendering my life over to you, he says, man, you will gain your life. And then he finally sums it up by saying, for what shall profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Now, Bill Gates can't pay his way to heaven. Donald Trump, his money does him no good on the day of judgment. All of these people who are wealthy, rich, famous, all of these things that they glory in, if they don't know Jesus Christ, it means nothing. Sometimes you look at how life is and it just makes me wonder. I like to philosophize sometimes. And I say, man, it is crazy how on your deathbed, nothing is important to you but life. That's it. You know, you're not sitting back thinking about your job. You ain't sitting back like, man, what am I going to do when I die? I ain't going to have a job. You ain't sitting back thinking about your wife, your kids. You're not sitting back. None of that stuff is important anymore. All you're thinking about is this is it. This is going to be possibly my last breath. And now all of a sudden you start thinking, what happens next? That is one of the thoughts that made me give my life to Christ. I thought and I said, man, if there is a heaven and hell, and if I was to die tonight, where would I go? And I couldn't honestly say, hey, that bothered me. In fact, I tried to hit him with, I don't know, maybe this is a gray area, maybe this is purgatory. No, I really knew deep down inside, if there was a heaven and a hell, I wasn't going to heaven. That bothered me. And I started saying, man, well, what else is there to life? I mean, shall I continue this pursuing all of this frivolous, useless garbage that I invest in so much that leads to nothing? Only what you do for Christ will last. You know, men have done great things on earth, but they're gone. Can't take their money with them. You hear about the millionaire that left $100 million to his great-great-great-grandchildren because he didn't like his children or his grandchildren. He put it in his will that his great-greats will receive it 21 years after his grandchildren died. So he made sure none of them was going to get anything. And now the last grandchild recently died. The will has been opened, and all of those great-greats are now getting that $100 million. You know, little selfish guy. But the bottom line is the money, he can't take it with him. He knew, man, it's a wrap. I'm dying, I got to leave to somebody. You know, so when you think about life and how short it is, I know this is tough because sometimes we get distracted by our own desires. But when you look at the wide range and the big perspective, as we get older, the stuff we think is so enjoyable really loses its flavor. There was some candy and stuff like that. I would kill for candy growing up. I used to go to the store, buy lemon heads, gumdrops, jaw breakers, you know, sweet tarts. I would load up on candy. If I could choose to eat candy versus real food, I would. Now, candy doesn't even appeal to me as an adult. It is rare that I pick up a piece of candy and eat it. And so you see then, with age, that stuff doesn't matter anymore. Once you turn 50, 60, 70, when you look at Deacon Mathis and all them, they ain't sitting back like, where the party at tonight? You know, this dude's looking at heaven. You know why? Because death is reality. These dudes like 75. They, man, what I look like out in the party? Like, yeah, be my last group up. Nah, they sitting back like, man, I got maybe 5 more years, 10 if I'm lucky. My old man used to never talk about death when he was my age. I remember he was my age. Now, that conversation is like every time I talk to him. Well, son, I may not be around much longer. I'm like, damn, would you stop that? You and your imagination. We're going to live forever. But the point I'm trying to make is he's no longer interested in all of that stuff. Now he's going, man, I got less years in front of me than I do behind me. So all I can do now is try to prepare myself for what happens after I die. But what happens to the young person who checks out and thinking they got those 40, 50 years, and they check out, and in a blink of an eye, they wake in front of God trying to explain why they refuse to surrender. Now that's tough, man. That's the awesome thing about life. No guarantees. you sitting back like, well, I assume I'll get tired, but you don't know. So it's better to say, right now, as I hear God's voice calling out to me, let me make a choice today. He said, the day that you hear my voice, harden not your heart. Meaning, I don't want to argue with you, man. Just do it. One thing I can't stand when I work with kids is when they argue. I'm like, man, get your stuff. Come on, I need you out of here. Why I got to go out? Look, you're not going to win this battle. I told a guy who didn't want to take his little do-rag or whatever he had off headband. Saw him early that morning. Say, man, grown man almost, junior. Said, hey, man, take the headband off. Took it off. Saw him again in the afternoon. Come here, man. Didn't I ask you to take the headband off early? Yeah. I said, okay, now I need the headband. Come on, take it off. Man, can't give you my headband. I said, you know you're not going to win this battle. I was like, you can fight it, but you know how this is going to end, right? One way or another, I'm getting a headband. And he finally understood. Not my will, but Mr. Ellerbe's will be done. Gave me the headband. You know, same thing with the Lord. He says, come. And people say, not yet. Not right now. Give it over. I can't. You know how this is going to end. So you might as well go ahead and make a choice. One way or another, I'm going to get what I need. This is that type of Bible study that makes KFC world. But, you know, it is what it is, man. These are the type of Bible studies that hit me first. You know, as I prepare some of these lessons, and then even as I prepare them and I'm speaking, God still expounds upon what I studied or what I read. So I never know what God is going to say as I start doing the Bible study. And the Holy Spirit just, you know, speaks. And it's interesting at how you can't edit the Holy Spirit. I can't sit back and say, well, just because this hurts Kev, I'm going to delete this part. It comes out. And it steps on my toes and it steps on everybody's toes. That's why nobody can say, the Bible study man was picking on me. He was talking, my friends must have told him that I'm into some stuff. No, I don't know nothing about people. You know, when I teach, man, it's all about whatever the Lord has to say, even if it cuts me. So that's the awesome thing about God, man. He doesn't spare nobody. He said, if everybody in the house needs to pull it together, then that's what it is, from the pulpit to the door. All right? So we got work cut out for us. I'm sure nobody in here is perfect. I'm sure if we all search our soul, we will understand the concept of surrender. We will find some things we'll go, Lord, that's a little difficult for me to give up. Work with me gently. Don't say stuff like some people used to say. I had people say, Lord, just take away my sex drive. No, don't say that. If you're struggling with sex, don't say that, because then when you shriveled up and can't do nothing, and you're 22 or 23 and you're married, talking about, I don't know why nothing working. Then you go, well, you told me to take it away. You know, people crack me up when they say stuff like, Lord, just if you know that I can't get right, break my legs, do something, hurt me, whatever you got to do. My prayer is always, Lord, help me get it right gently. With mercy and grace. Just tap me on the shoulder. I don't want to be coming in the wheelchair. I'm ready to be saved. I want to come in my right mind and help you. All right. Any questions, comments, concerns? No? Okay. Obviously, it's getting hot outside. So many people probably are enjoying the weather, doing whatever it is that they do. I want to encourage you guys to, you know, continue to invite people, let them know, remind your friends, hey man, what's up? Bible study's still going on. Finish strong. It's not about how you start. I mean, that's why I never get excited at the beginning of the year. We always get the big fluctuation of people. And then, oh yeah, we had 60 people at the Bible study. At the end of the year, you're down to 15 to 20. So, I mean, I want to be in a race and quit the last 10 yards. Run through the line. You know, I had to learn that in college, man. My coach used to let me have it. I stopped, pull up the last 2 feet. He'd be like, go back. I'm like, what? I ran most of the way. You didn't run through the line. Finish it. You know? So, same thing with Bible study and the Lord. You know, continue to come, be faithful to the Bible study, let other people know, do your witnessing. And if anybody have any need to come to church, meaning you don't have your own church home, you need a ride, Antoine, who is missing right now, we'll pick you up on Sunday. And is there any other announcements? No? All right, I guess that's it then. So let